And so finally, in our Yogalehrbuch session, Nobuyoshi Yamabe is Professor of Asian Philosophy at Waseda University with expertise in Indian Buddhism and its development across Central and East Asia. While specializing in Yogacara and Buddhist meditational texts, he has published widely in English and Japanese on various aspects of Buddhism, including comparative research on Japanese Buddhist tradition. His recent publications cover topics such as the position of conceptualization in Yogacara Bija theory and concentration and visualization techniques in Buddhist meditation. In fall 2020, Professor Yamabe served as an Numata Visiting Professor of Buddhist Studies at University of California, Berkeley. So, really, thank you very much.
It is always a great pleasure and honor to visit this time-honored prestigious institution and discuss matters of common interest with all of you. And I first thank Professor Schlingloff for giving me this precious opportunity, and also Venerable and Dr. John and Mr. Wong for your devoted assistance. Thank you very much. Yeah, okay. Today I talk about Karuṇā of the Yogalehrbuch, and this you all know, this is an important meditation text in Sanskrit, found in Asia, and edited and translated in German and published by Professor Dieter Schlingloff. And has been already mentioned, we as a team are trying to produce a new English translation of this important text. And I'm very happy that most of us are here today, either in person or online. And yeah, and among us, Andy always has always been interested in the doctrinal doctrinal side of this Yogalehrbuch. And honestly, initially, I was sort of skeptical of his approach because I worked on this meditation text, and particularly in my doctoral dissertation, I discussed Gonfa hygiene, and this is also an important visualization text. And this one of the text that shares many similar visionary images with the Yogalehrbuch. And for this Gonfa hygiene, at least, it shows very little interest in doctrinal aspects. It focuses on strange visionary images and also some narrative stories. Yeah. So I think my impression was influenced by this text and by my experience of working on this text. So and also, as has been already mentioned, Yogalehrbuch does discuss doctrinal concepts, but that portion is rather short, and most portion is focused on visionary images. So I was sort of hesitant to take the doctrinal discussion too seriously. Yeah, and for example, these are the chapters of this Yogalehrbuch, as has been already mentioned, and just looking at these chapters, this construction seems similar to these chapters of Dharma-Prata Meditation Sutra, Dharma-Guru Tanjin. And that has been already mentioned by Professor Inoguchi in his review of Professor Schlingloff's book. But in my paper, I mentioned that these structural similarities are not so important, and we should pay more attention to the peculiar images. Yeah. However, as Dr. Johnson mentioned, last year I was at UC Berkeley and had a chance to read part of this Yogalehrbuch again with graduate students at UC Berkeley. And at that point, I read this chapter, Karuṇā, with the graduate students there. And as a result, I sort of changed my mind. Yeah, and I now think that although the discussion of doctrinal matters is quite short, I think it's not negligible. This is important and should be taken seriously. Yeah. Yeah. So as I've already mentioned, each chapter of the Yogalehrbuch consists of brief doctrinal introduction and then long visionary portion. Yeah. And so we discuss what is the relationship. Yeah. So first, the very first question is rather fragmentary, so it's difficult to make out much of this. But apparently, it is discussing the sequence of the apramana. So first is practice Maitri, and then is to practice Karuṇā. And the same sequence is found in this abhidharma-type. Yeah. And then this is Svabhava of Karuṇā. And that is almost the same as what Henry has already talked about. So we need to spend much time on this. And then this one, taken together with the accompaniments and associates, those belonging to the realm of desire consist of the 4 aggregates, but those belonging to the realm of form consist of the 5 aggregates. Yeah, and again, we can find very similar statement in the abhidharma-type. And what does this mean? Yeah, and on this one, I have a slightly different interpretation from Dr. Henry always. So let me discuss. What does this mean? First, we should look at this passage from the Sanskrit Pariyaya, and it says that compassion, Karuṇā, so the Svabhava of compassion, consists of compassion itself and sensation, ideation, volition, and consciousness associated with compassion. Yeah. And Daikyuzurum also have similar statements. Yeah. Okay, so apparently, this text is saying that the Svabhava of Karuṇā are these 4 of Vedana, Sanjana, Samskara, and Vijnana. And but this also says the Mahavibhasha mentioned this accompaniment and parivarta. And what does this mean? Yeah, and if we look at some other portion of the Mahavibhasha, we find this statement, and it says, what is the substance of the concomitant elements? Answer, the 4 and 5 aggregates. In the realm of desire and no form, the 4 aggregates, because there is no concomitant material elements. In the realm of 4, the 5 aggregates, because there are concomitant material elements. So we have to find very similar statement. Yeah. So this 3 grams, what is it? Yeah. So so apparently the Svabhava of Karuṇā mentioned by the Yogalehrbuch and the Mahavibhasha has this structure. In the Kama, for the Kama Vachara Karuṇā, it consists of Vedana, Sanjana, Samskara, and Vijnana. But for the Rupa Vachara Karuṇā, it consists of Rupa, Vedana, Sanjana, Samskara, and Vijnana. Yeah. Okay. So why Rupa is missing in Kama Vachara? All right, so we also find this statement in the abhidharma-type. So apparently, this refers to the material element concomitant with mind. Yeah, and this material element concomitant with mind seems to be very close to samahita abhijñapti. Yeah, so chitta anuvartini rupa and samahita abhijñapti seem to be very close. Yeah, and also we can find this statement. Mind and physical and verbal karma concomitant with mind are simultaneous causes. The physical and verbal karma concomitant with mind are restraints caused by meditation, and the sarva without pollution, etc. Here. So here, the mind must refer to the concentrated mind in meditation. Thus, the physical and verbal karma concomitant with mind in meditation, and the restraints caused by meditation, which must be inseparable from abhidharma-type, are also very close. Yeah, so thus, apparently, concomitant material elements refers to the unmanifest material elements of abhidharma-rupa are created by concentrated mind that prevents people from doing evil. And thus, the Svabhava of Karuṇā Brahmana, according to the Yogalehrbuch, is, as I mentioned this way. This seems to mean that in the Rupa Dhatu, there are unmanifest material elements created through meditation. These material elements are part of the constituents of Karuṇā Brahmana. Since these types of rupas exist only in the meditative states, they are relevant only to the Rupa Avachara Karuṇā Brahmana. This is my interpretation. Yeah, and I refer to this article. Thus, the author of the Yogalehrbuch seems to have been well familiar with the complicated details of the Sarvāstivāda doctrinal system, unless the author copied from some abhidharma-type without really understanding its content. Yeah, but I think this is too much of skepticism. This is too much to say. So my impression is that the author of the Yogalehrbuch indeed understood and was familiar with the Sarvāstivāda abhidharma system. Yeah, and then concerning Australia, this is based on only karma dhatu, and concerning the Arambana, Arambana is only the karma dhatu. This is also already discussed by Henry. Yeah, and then concerning the Bhumi, it is based on the 7 Bhumis. Yeah, this is also discussed by Henry. Yeah. So thus far is the doctrinal portion, and the content agrees neatly with the Sarvāstivāda system as found in the Mahavibhasha. So the author of the Yogalehrbuch was clearly familiar with the Sarvāstivāda abhidharma. Yeah, this is clear, I think. Then Tat Prayoga. Mahavibhasha also said, adjustment. This is clearly a translation for yoga. And then the target is classified into 7 types. This is also already discussed by Henry. So a best friend, middle level friend, and sort of a minor friend, and then neutral people, and then minor enemy, middle level enemy, and great enemy, worst enemy. Yeah. Yeah. So that part is the basic structure of the practice of compassion. And again, it follows the system of Sarvāstivāda. And afterwards, the atmosphere suddenly changes and a mystical visionary world unfolds. Yeah, as already mentioned by Constance and Henry. Yeah. And what happens? So in the middle of the brows of this meditator, excited by compassion, a black and heated boy grows, and a woman comes out of the head and sprinkles a shower of milk to his body until his sensation is calmed down. Yeah, and if you look at this Gohosame hygiene, well, not exactly the same, but milk river flows out from the middle point of the eyebrow. Yeah, so similar image is found in this Gohosame hygiene. And then this show of milk from his body appeases the suffering of the sentient beings. Yeah, and again in the Gohosame hygiene, we can find a very similar image. And then this what Karuṇā is directed at sentient beings who is suffering, and one of the major causes of suffering is of course disease, and disease altogether 404, and this is also a very common concept in Buddhist text, and it is also found in the Abhidharma-Mahavibhasha. Yeah, and then its embodiment. In his heart appears a woman shining in gold and wearing white cloth. having appeared, she inspires the yogi something to be done. I will offer you help with favor to all when you benefit all the others. Then embodiment is compassion, i.e. woman, which comes out of the heart, goes as far as the Kanishta heaven, filling the whole sky like a peak of cloud, etc. Yeah, and well, this is typically Yogalehrbuch type of thing, but at least the element of compassion of filling the space. Concerning this part, something similar is found in traditional abhidharma-type, for example, in this Dharma Skanda. And also concerning the image of Abrahuta in the sky, we can find a sort of similar image in the Vimalakirti Nirdesha, as you see. Manuscript, just like a heap of clouds in the sky, all sentient beings should be observed by a bodhisattva. Yeah, so maybe there's Mahayana influence as well. Yeah, so something abstract, compassion is embodied in something visible, i.e. Uma. The thing described in the Yogalehrbuch was quite extraordinary. However, the basic image of compassion filling the space seems to be from traditional text. And perhaps it also has some connection to Mahayana text. Yeah, and I will discuss this point again later. And then Abhisheka and Brahma appears for it holding pot and sprinkles the essence of sentient beings. Yeah, and again, similar image is frequently found in the Gopasame hygiene and cognate changing meditation text, as you see here. And I discussed this image in this paper, and basically I understand that this is a meditative, visionary reenactment of the Buddha's words, because according to the standard hagiography of the Buddha, just after the Buddha's words, he was consecrated, bathed by Brahma and Indra. And I think the practitioner is experiencing the same thing in his meditation. Then, Akshaya Mahanarakaha, Soda Shot Pada Apagara, Saha Shita Narakair, etc. Given. So the 8 great heads accompanied by 16 annex heads together with 4 heads appear. And this again is a standard Sarvāstivāda cosmology. And exactly the same thing is found in Abhidharma-type. And this is already mentioned by Prof. Schlingloff. And then the practitioner says the Naraka people and Naraka beings sprinkled with a shower of the essence of flowers. Yeah. And again, similar image is found in the Gopasame hygiene. And then to the meditator with compassionate intention, the field of 5 destinies emerge. Yeah, and in this case, similar image is found in the Dharma Doro Chanjin, Dharma meditation manual. And then Samsara Chakra is also mentioned. Yeah, and the field of reincarnation appears to the meditator. And Chamaya has a very similar image. And the fundamental image of the dependent origination of 12 links appears to the meditator. And concerning this, I think we should refer to this mirror painting in Kumtora Cave 75. Can you see the pointer? Yeah. So this is a meditator clearly in the frontal view of person sitting in meditation, and 6 destinies are emerging probably from the navel of this meditator. And here is a big tree crown, and we can see a Buddha sitting here. And so I think the mirror painting in this cave depicts the scenes very similar to the ones found in the Yogalehrbuch. And here we can see this is clearly a samsara chakra. Yeah, and we can see another samsara chakra here. So probably samsara chakra was also conceived as one of the visionary images practitioner sees in his meditation. And I discussed these images in this Chinese article, and the English version will appear hopefully soon. Yeah, in Arabic. So if you're interested, please look for this article. Yeah, so Computer Cave 75 suggests that the samsara chakra was one of the images visualized in meditation. And so something abstract, practitioner Sarvāstivāda, is embodied in a visual image in samsara chakra seen by the meditator. Yeah. And then again, in Brahma appears, and he holds a consecration vase. Yeah, and again, something very similar is found in the ground for Same hygiene. And I'm suspecting that this may depict something similar. This is mirror painting in Waseda cave number 3, and here's seated Buddha, and this apparently is a practitioner, and maybe deities or bodhisattvas, and this one is clearly holding a vase, and apparently he's pouring some liquid onto the head of the kneeling practitioner. Yeah, however, we should note that concerning the interpretation of this painting, recently, this Ram and Pinshan published a paper, and he argues that this painting actually depicts the narrative scene of Buddha bathing a sick monk. Yeah, and I think his argument is solid. So probably, originally this painting was meant to show that scene, but maybe my suspicion, just casual suspicion, is that single iconography could have plural interpretations. Yeah, so maybe this device originally as a scene of narrative scene, but later maybe this was also could have been also interpreted as a mystical visionary abhishek scene. Yeah, just my casual suspicion. Yeah, and then Ratnamaya Vriksha, a jewel-made tree appeared, and that stamp filling the whole world. Yeah, so the image of a cosmic tree, again, a very similar image is found in the Guangpo Same Haiji. And then, this is Vyakarana. So Buddha appears, and he touches the head of the meditator with his hand and says, son, in the future time, you will be a fully enlightened one, removal of all the diseases of the sentient beings. And this has been already mentioned by Constance. And similar scene of touching the head is found in this Chamyapa in one of the Chinese meditation texts. And also elsewhere in the Chamyapa also we can find the image of touching the head. And then, but this is Vyakarana, right? And what Vyakarana is not necessarily Mahayana, because in the sectarian Buddhist text also we can find sense of Vyakarana, but in sectarian text, usually Vyakarana is given to very limited people, usually in the former birth of Shakyamuni. But here, clearly, just a regular practitioner is experiencing Vyakarana. And that reminds me of Mahayanist Vyakarana, just like this one found in Panchavita Saktika, Paramita. Yeah, and Tavam, Anagate Advani, etc., Samek Sambuddho. So the expressions are also quite simple. Yeah, and well, I'm sorry, this these are puts out Beiyuan Jin is probably not a good text to quote here, but at least the image of touching the head appeared here. And then another thing is, as we have seen, concerning this apramana, relevant discussions are found in Daiju Durun as well. And Daiju Durun as a whole is a Mahayana text, but the author probably is compiled by Kumarajiva, I assume, and Kumarajiva was very familiar with Sarvāstivāda text, Sarvāstivāda doctrine as well. And but basic, based on Sarvāstivāda concept, it also talks about Mahayanist idea. And so, in the context of this four apramana, this passage, when this Bodhisattva becomes a Buddha, though he cannot give happiness to all sentient beings, the Bodhisattva makes a great vow. So, yeah, so this is Mahayanist idea. So, the practitioner himself is receiving a prediction of future Buddha. Yeah, a regular practitioner, not very special person, is receiving a prediction of future Buddha. And apparently, this is a Mahayanist idea. And in the Daiju Durun, the traditional practice of the fourfold boundlessness is apparently kept in the Mahayanist framework. So I suspect that something similar is happening in the Daiju Durun and the Yogalehrbuch. Yeah, and again, this is a cosmic tree, and it reaches the Arcanist heaven. And some Buddhas are on the cosmic tree. And in the Gulf of Samye Haijin, and Shravaka monks are on the cosmic tree. Yeah, etc. And I think that this painting may well depict that kind of thing. Yeah, and actually, I discussed this image in the conference of the Yogalehrbuch project held at Heidelberg. Yeah, so I hope it will appear before long. Yeah, and so in conclusion, the author of the Yogalehrbuch was well familiar with the Sarvāstivāda abhidharma, and in this way, the Yogalehrbuch is slightly different from the Guanpo Samye Haijin, which shows little interest in doctrinal elements. Even the basic structure of meditation is based on the Sarvāstivāda system. Yeah, a basic structure of meditation in the Yogalehrbuch is based on the Sarvāstivāda system. However, in the practice described in the Yogalehrbuch, many abstract concepts are visualized as concrete images. And perhaps also the Yogalehrbuch was at least partly influenced by Mahayana Buddhism. And Daiju Durun, this is as a whole a Mahayana work, but it has many Sarvāstivāda elements. And the translator or compiler of this text, Kumarajiva, he was a native Kucha, and what does it mean? I'm not completely sure. So I would appreciate your input. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. First of all, any comments?
Yeah, thank you, Professor Yamabe, for the very detailed elaboration of a great number of elements, actually. So I just have a couple of comments, and then I'll finish with the question. Working from back to front, this Karuṇā phenomenon in the text, we actually find basically the same formula in the abhidharma-type. So to entertain the view that this is a Mahayanist idea, we would then really have to start to question how these sort of fundamental Sarvāstivāda narratives were functioning in the early Common Era. Part of those formulae are also found in Kharoshthi and Brahmi inscriptions from the period as well. So we would really have to, I mean, we don't find Mahayana in those elements. So I think the aspect of Karuṇā at this time, sort of in Gandhara, where they emerge, although not Mahayana, was mean, it's hard to interpret the soteriology of these aspirations, but it's clearly not necessarily Mahayana and was accepted by the Sarvāstivādins in this context. But it was a change, it was a revolution, that's for sure. So this second point, going backwards, the abhidharma-type. So I completely agree. I also considered the passages that you showed regarding the Anuparibhata. But what is the abhidharma-type? It is a type of form that is apratiga, that is not resistant,
right.
and that is anidarshana, that is invisible, and it gives manifest to a whole host of objects that are not otherwise visible. And there's a long elaboration in the Mahābhāsha about these, of course. But my question was, because I mean, how did the author of the Yogalehrbuch understand those passages? So what does it mean when the Svabhava of Karuṇā has 5 aggregates?
Yeah.
What does that mean in this context? What is the abhijñāti-rūpa here? You know, maybe it's a question of how the Yogalehrbuch author understood the Abhidharma actually.
Concerning the first, via Karuṇā, yes, I'm fully aware that this via Karuṇā also appears in Sarvāstivāda text. Yeah, but my understanding is that in the Sarvāstivāda text, it usually refers to Shakyamuni Bodhisattva. No?
No, there are many people that receive, there are women that receive this prediction of Buddhahood and they make the same vow. And this is also a soteriological shift in Buddhism that women can make these vows as well, of course. So it was really part of sort of some revolutionary change to ritual practice and the question of soteriology and agency, I think.
Okay. So honestly, I prepared this paper in a very short time. So I haven't exhaustively checked all these sources. So I should check further.
I'll send you these.
Thank you. Okay. And concerning abhidharma-type, the Svabhava itself is abhimsa. Right, as you said, and this discussion is if you include all the associated elements, then all the 5 aggregates are also can be considered to be the Svabhava of Karuṇā, right? And so this is a very broad discussion, and if you include everything relevant, then abhidharma-type can be also part of the Svabhava. Because abhidharma-type, as I said, is very close to the dhyana sambhara. And so in dhyana sambhara, when you are in dhyana state, you naturally do not do bad thing. I think that's the image, and that's the idea. So Karuṇā, if you develop Karuṇā in rupa, that you're naturally in meditative state. And in that situation, in the meditation had very positive potential, potentiality, right? And that is abhidharma-type. So in that sense, abhidharma-type can be actually doctrinally included in the concept of Karuṇā. I think, So this is a very doctrinal argument. It's a very visionary argument. But this is finding standard Sarvāstivāda text. So it must be a doctrinal discussion, I think.
There are visionary arguments made for abhidharma-type in the context of the divine eye and the divine ear.
Okay.
I don't know what you would regard the abhidharma-type in such a context to be.
Again, I have to check again. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed your talk. I don't know if where your suspicion about the mystical vision of the Buddha washing the monk, but I really like it. I think that sounds like a good suspicion. The connection of the paintings on the walls of the caves of Durma to the texts is close but not directive. So when you have the texts, you can see the content of the text in the paintings, but the paintings themselves are the practice.
Yeah.
So that's why it seems a good suspicion.
Yeah, one of the things that support my suspicion is that elsewhere in the same cave, apparently a mystical encounter, a visionary encounter with the Buddha is painted. Yeah, so this cave has some connection with the type of practice we are talking right now. Yeah, so perhaps this was originally some narrative scene, but that was sort of reinterpreted as visionary scene. That may be also possible. That's my suspicion. Yeah, thank you.
Anyone online? We'll slowly sort of transition towards a discussion as well, but does anyone at home have any specific questions for Professor Yamabe? I mean, some things I have to ask pertain more just to making sense of the Yogalehrbuch as a whole. So I'm not sure whether to talk about these now or later. But when you say influenced by Mahayana Buddhism, how further do you go? What do you mean by influenced by in this context?
What do you mean by how far?
Do you think you are looking at a Mahayanist text, a quasi-Mahayanist text, something that is aware of Mahayana Buddhist interests and is responding and doing something different? What do you think?
As I have mentioned, one of the important points of this text is that in meditation, in visionary experiences, the practitioner experiences something that is sort of normally beyond the reach of regular people. Yeah, so like the Abhisheka by Brahman, the Indra, that is supposedly experienced by the Buddha himself. Yeah, and regular practitioner can experience the same thing in meditation. Yeah, and via Karuṇā, well, maybe not limited to the Buddha himself, but my impression is that still, it is reserved for quite special people. Yeah, and but in this text, a regular meditator can receive via Karuṇā, right? And also, elsewhere, Constantine also mentioned, the practitioner tries to enter the city of Nirvana, then he stops. Yeah, because all the sentient beings are suffering, forsaking those people, and where do you want to go? And this also seems to be quite close to the Mahayanist idea. I guess already pointed out by Sakota. Yeah.
That's the really tantalizing bit. Just one question. Given that the Yogalehrbuch team as well, given that this is a text that's also really interested in cosmography in some form, because obviously these meditative states are also places to be. It is, however, just moving on that axis. We never get other Buddhic kshetras. We never go out in the other direction, do we, or do we? No, nothing.
It's always orthodox.
It's always within this world, right?
And of course, in the future and the past, the meditation moves through the time and the temporal dimensions.
There's no Buddha.
No, yeah. And we've got, there are many Buddhas, but many Buddhas as things created rather than anything else, am I right? Or
there are many Buddhas, yes,
yeah,
like Sarva Buddha, like there's no named other Buddhas.
Yeah.
No, I think there are. Buddhas are.
But no more than the same.
So temporal Buddhas, and you might, I don't know, the visualizations that have many Buddhas popping out of things I can't remember now. Right. But
Right, yeah. So no Mahayanist Buddha is mentioned. And that's why Professor Schlingloff thought that this is basically sort of the text. And also the Kosama hygiene has sometimes had strange cosmology. For example, the list of head is different from the standard list. Yeah, but concerning this Yogalehrbuch itself, I think it follows the standard and cosmology.
So if I could just, because it's related to compassion as well, because I mean, this moment when the practitioner in the state of equanimity,
Yeah.
you know, has no relationship anymore to sentient beings, then the adipati rupa of Karuṇā, of Mahakaruna, sort of comes in and, you know, reintroduce like emotion, but Mahakaruna is reintroduced into the equation, but the intrinsic nature of Mahakaruna is prajna. So this is actually about insight now into reality. So it's not really an emotion, it's it's an emotion derived from insight of reality of sentient beings. And this there's a long explanation of this in the Vibhasha about Mahakaruna in the chapter on the immeasurables. In that presentation, it's only associated with the practice of the Buddha. What our text does is make that available to a Yogacara engaging with this type of text. So I don't know whether that is the step, the important step from only associating this practice in a traditional context with the Buddha and therefore it's being unavailable to others, and now it becoming available. So I don't know whether that then would be this sort of response to Mahayana, this sort of interposition that I referred to between the Sarvāstivāda and Mahayana doctrines, because they're clearly sort of putting their pole in the ground and saying, Vaibhashika, yeah, this text, it's really like this actually. I mean, it's not an apologetic work, but it's somehow doing this.
Yeah, and another thing I'd like to say is that, you know, if we look at the Chinese medicine text, the boundary between Mahayana and, you know, Sarvāda or inscrutable is not so clear cut. Yeah, I think that borderline was important for scholars, but for practitioners, well, I think that is not so clear cut either. Yeah, that's my impression. Yeah.
Any other questions for Professor Yamabe at this point? In which case, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And we have had our papers, but we do, of course, still have some time scheduled for discussion, which can be discussion about what we've had today with our Yogalehrbuch panel, but I think also just as productively remembering what we talked about yesterday as well. So the floor is open.
I can just draw attention to a feedback form that's been circulated by Venerable Kitipanyo. If people wouldn't mind filling it in, that would be great.
Could you please project the QR code so they can scan?
Well, while this is happening, let me raise one thing. And again, show my tremendous ignorance about other traditions of visualization. But when we're looking at the Lehrbuch, we are not, and this did come up, we're not just looking at things visualized. We're dealing with a text that also has a profound auditory element. I'm right. There are sounds going on. It's not just things popping up in front of one's eyes, but there is all kinds of auditory stuff happening as well, such that I can't remember, one of you mentioned this earlier, but the question of whether or not visualization is the best word for this, or was there something else?
Yeah, it's not.
No. Using an imagination. I mean, is this true of other traditions that people find? I mean, is it surprising to find a tradition with this much, let's say, occurrence of unexpected auditory experience, or?
Just having worked on the long sort of the deacon plan, there's nothing here which is actually unfamiliar. The present tense, the visual imagery, and the Mahasiddhasana, sort of the bells going on just as in the garden review. That same kind of, I think probably a little bit more structured in the deepening class, but there is something more again, word I can think of is fluid about the Yogalehrbuch, but it nonetheless conforms to quite clear narrative patterns and all the senses are there. This seems to me, isn't this something that goes on throughout Buddhist texts? I'm ignorant about other Buddhism, so I don't know. But, so it's certainly there in the Pali text, and I would have thought even more in the Mahayana, that it's just the kind of literary style of alluding to those in conjunction with the meditation. In a more narrative way than the actual sitting practice would be, because it's more a listening bhavana, isn't it? Rather than a sitting practice. It is actually a bhavana, isn't it? Yes.
The chat here. So the chat is there, but there's some with a raised hand. Yes, here. Yes.
Yes, thank you so much for your very interesting presentation. It was really an honor to be able to hear everything and learn about so many things. I'm a student writing a dissertation about the murals, Buddhist murals of Kucha, and there are some images of monks who are sitting next to the skulls, and also the images of monks who are sitting next to the blue squares or blue rectangles. And I thought about Karuṇā meditation as a possible way to interpret it. And I looked up for the Karuṇā meditation and many other types of meditation, but the information is really what I could find was very small. So it would be very helpful if you could, if anyone in the floor, could tell me more about Karuṇā meditation or like other types of meditation that were possibly in the Kucha region and also in other traditions. Thank you.
I don't know about particularly in Kucha, but you find the Krishna ayatanas in Sanskrit, Kasina. You find it all over Sarvāstivāda literature. So just look at the abhidharma-type fascia. There you will find a basic.
But also in the passage that I quoted in my presentation, it refers to the Lila Krishna ayatana.
Yeah.
So our text, the Yogalehrbuch, also gives implicit references to these meditations, but only as part of other meditations. Yeah.
In Theravada Buddhism, there is a section about Kasina in Visuddhimagga.
Thank you. Henrik, when you're ready.
Well, this is actually a little bit in response to this question about meditating on the skull. And not so long ago, I was in Berlin to look at the Central Asian collection in Berlin from the different Buddhist sites there. And there is, of course, this famous wall painting fragment of the meditating monk with a skull next to him. And interestingly, in the collection, which had something I didn't know, we found a small skull actually that was, if I remember correctly, carved in wood, but it could be clay also. And I think, I mean, it was a miniature, so it is like a memento mori for Buddhists, I suppose. And I could imagine that these miniature skulls could have been used also in Buddhist practice. I mean, simply as to commemorate the fact that we are not eternal, and that once you peel the onion, you know, inside you have a skeleton.
Yeah, so in the Sarvāstivāda Vinaya, one of the few objects of art, let's say, that a monk is allowed to carry is actually a carving of a skull, in order that they can repeatedly cultivate Ashubha. So they can always look at it basically on the go, so to say.
Yeah, there you go. I mean.
Do we have depictions of monks with their carvings of skulls?
Like a representation of representation.
Indeed. I'd just like to see one of them.
Yeah, pictures of monks with the skulls. But I'm not sure if it's carvings of skulls, but skulls. Yeah.
Well, because there's the one in Hadda in Afghanistan, the mural, And it's like a monk, I think Ananda and Mahakashi both sat next to a skull, but they think that it's not a meditation practice, but the skull,
It's skeleton.
a skeleton,
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah,
yeah, but it must belong to the same context, like.
Yeah. But I agree with that it's not as bad. Yeah.
Sorry, you were saying.
With paintings of monks carrying palm cup.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of difference. Really.
Yes, thank you. So thank you very much. So this is just to make a little reflection on this. So basically, as a monastic, what I learned yesterday and today, it's all about peace and harmony, because we all widely and wisely talk about what mind is and how to realize the ultimate nature of mind in the spirit of clarity, solidity, and transparency. So I would say, finally, all roads lead to Rome, something like that. We have different and very distinctive branches of Buddhism, such as Theravada, Mahayana, Vajrayana, Tantrayana. So we are currently using, not currently, historically, we have been using and emphasizing many labels and techniques, methodologies to analyze the phenomenal nature of the mind. So what I have understood today, the more we practice, the more we train our mind, the clarity will become autonomously. So that means we should go in parallel with the textual understanding and practical application, the theory and application in meditation. The theory and application, whenever they come together, then we will be more aware of what mindfulness, what meditation, visualization is. So finally, I would like to wind up my little reflection saying that this is a wise saying and well-known phrase in Theravada Buddhism comes from Dhammapada. Chittena niyati loko, chittena parakasati, chittaseka dhammasa sabbeva vasamanvagu. The mind brings you into the world. The mind gets you out of the world. So how much you practice and train your consciousness, your awareness, the clarity and solidity will become more and more. So finally, I would say we have many common grounds to play with by means of meditation. So we can play with together with many cross-cultural similarities, despite other discrepancies. Then yes, we can go all together, and finally we achieve the same goal, the liberation of the very enlightened moment of our life, I think. Yes, so that's my understanding yesterday and today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sarah.
I'd like to thank the organizers for this conference because I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed all the stuff.
Thanks everyone for coming and joining us for this day. And if you have anything to provide with us, let us comment or suggestion to bring contact us for you.
Thank you, everyone. I think this draws to a close our workshop then. Those of you online, thank you very much. I believe you can now log off. I don't think there's more that's relevant to you right now. Thank you for coming to the right room as well.
Thanks very much.
Is that not it? You should still see the link.
So there's a link for feedback, but the link for the memorial for Stefano Zacchetti is a separate link.
Okay, I was.
I don't, you could put it in the chat now.
I'm going to put it.
We could do, well, if you, what's happening next here is we're having a short break, and then what will happen is this room here in Cambridge will join the memorial event for Stefano Zacchetti, which will begin at 2 o'clock. So have they said, I mean, you can send that link there if you, that link doesn't pass for one.
It'll
It doesn't mean passwords, I think Vicky will let people in.
yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, for those who hadn't received the link but are interested in it, there is a Zoom link to said memorial that we'll put in the chat now. Thank you, Jennifer.
Or you can just search for it in register.
At any rate, those of you here, thank you very much for attending. We will now take a break. As you remember, there is coffee, tea, still some things upstairs. I think the sandwiches next will be good. We will begin back here for the memorial at 2 o'clock. What I'd ask, please, especially because of the owl and how easily it picks things up in the room, if you're going to attend that, can we please have people in here before 2 o'clock?
Yeah.
Because we will then be joining that meeting at that time, just so it's not picking up too many people wandering around. Otherwise, contributors, if you're not joining us for this, which is entirely fine, we will see you later on for dinner. You have the address of said restaurant. If, however, there's any doubt, I will leave from the front of it's in the program.
No.
Okay.
Oh, it was an email.
The more updated one has got it. At any rate, if there is an issue, I'll be leaving from the Lodge of Selwyn at 5 to 7. So I'll leave from there and walk people around. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
No one.